Okay guys, I'm going to take this opportunity to do a follow-up to my original timeline with some things that solidify where certain games take place. First of all, I did watch P-Merkt and Wicked X's timelines on the Zelda series, and they helped us solidify where I believe certain games take place. Now P-Merkt has told me that he believes that the official statements aren't accurate, as they simply state that they're given on the spur of the moment because positions sometimes change. When new games come out, things are retconned. I'm a personal believer that you can't go by a whole lot of what separate games like the original two Zeldas and A Link to the Past say on their boxes or manuals, because those were the original three Zelda games. And so much has happened since then. It's very common for placements to be retconned to adjust to the new game stories. Since those games were made way before the timeline split in Ocarina of Time, I believe that their placements in the chain shifted to make do for that, which is why I consider to be on opposite sides of the split. Anyway, let's get started. As Wicked X stated in his timeline theory, the Four Swords was officially stated to be the oldest game in the timeline at that time, which meant that it took place before the timeline split, obviously, in Ocarina of Time. P-Merkt claims that the Four Swords series is a separate series, but I think the problem with that statement lies in the fact that at the end of the Four Swords adventures, not only does Ganon acquire the Trident, but he also gets sealed away. So this obviously predates A Link to the Past. If the Four Swords was the first game in the timeline at that time, obviously Minish Cap is a sequel to that, as it shows Vadi's origins. And as I mentioned in my previous video, these two games are the only two standalone games, not to mention Ganondorf, those that aren't direct sequels like Majora's Mask, Adventure of Link, and Phantom Hourglass anyway. Which is why I stand by my statement that they take place first. Anyway, after that is obviously Ocarina of Time, first game to chronologically mention Ganondorf. At the end of that game, two realities are made, one that has Link return to being a child, and one that he left behind to fade into nothing, blah 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 blah. We know this already. I do applaud P-Merkt for coming up with a radically different theory by placing Majora's Mask in the time of Hyrule B, but there's a problem with that. To say that Hyrule A is the one Link left behind is flawed because of one important factor, that is Twinrova. Kyum and Kotake only appear in 3 games, and I don't think this is accidental. It's done to solidify that they're indeed two timelines. Because they aren't minor characters, they're pretty significant. In the time that Link left behind, Twinrova was dead and gone, and in the time that Link returned to, they were still alive. They can obviously survive aging, given their age of either 380 or 400, the one that they were fighting over at the end of their fight in the Spirit Temple in Ocarina of Time. So that isn't a problem. They could take place anywhere, because they're obviously old enough that they should be dead by now, but they're not. So until they appear in another game, which I don't think they will, they can't take place on the same side that Link killed them in. But if they do take place in another game, well, then it's going to get retconned, so whatever. But since they're only in 2 completely separate series, games, but Oracle series is generally one large game, they've only appeared twice. So now, this is why I say Majora's Mask is on the left, because Link returned to being a child, and obviously Twinrova has to happen on the left side, not Hyrule B, where Link left behind because he killed them there. On the other side, more Links are this is why I say that Majora's Mask is on the left, but anyways, on the other side is the Wind Waker series, because Link never returned to fight Ganon. It's stated in the legend at the beginning of the game. While on the other side, more Links are still a thorn in the evil king's side, this time in Twilight Princess. He returns after being tried and sealed for his intentions, which is shown at the middle of Twilight Princess. Setting in this game is obviously similar to Ocarina of Time. Death Mountain, Kakariko Village are in the same place, as is Lake Hylia and the Castle Town, and also the forest. I'm talking the GameCube version, which is the canon version. The Wii version is simply a mirrored flip. It obviously takes place hundreds of years later, you know, given the movement of the Master Sword and whatnot, but not enough time for the land to become unrecognizably different. I mean, there's a few shifts, like Zora's River being in a completely different area, but whatever. Now, as I mentioned before, the only games left on my theoretical side of Hyrule A are ones that have Ganon with the trident, which he obviously gains in Four Swords Adventures. At the end of this game, he gets sealed away in the Four Sword, which I'm guessing was a temporary prison for him until the wise men sealed him in the Golden Land. Obviously, this leads to A Link to the Past. Now, P-Merkt in his timeline mentions this has to take place after Ocarina of Time, but the problem is that this series has already shown Ganon sealed no less than 2 times, and 3 times in my timeline. First, at the end of Ocarina of Time with the 7 sages, and that happens when Link leaves that timeline behind. Second, on the other side, with Ganondorf being found out and sealed in the Twilight Realm after the events of Hyrule A's Ocarina of Time. And thirdly, when he gets sealed in Four Swords Adventures, and this to me seems like the most likely sealing process that relates to A Link to the Past, as Ganondorf has the trident. Now at the end of this game, at the end of A Link to the Past, the Triforce is regained, Ganon is completely destroyed, and all is well. Well, remember on this side, Twinrova is still alive, and this leads to Ganon being revived at the end of whichever oracle you place second. I gotta thank P-Merkt for reminding me of this part, because I didn't remember. It's so minuscule that it's easy to forget. At the end, both Twinrova and Ganon are killed, and the game ends with Link leaving on a sailboat. This is so minute that there's no reason why I'd believe they would show it unless it was to say that this game precedes Link's awakening, which conveniently enough begins with Link on a sailboat. And obviously in this game it has to take place after Link to the Past because, you know, it has Ganon's shadow, but it also has Aghanim's shadow. So this ends my Hyrule A. Now, several timelines say that this follows up with the original Legend of Zelda, you know, because Link got shipwrecked and lost his equipment, hence him going around and collecting new ones. Well, this aspect is nothing new, and you know, Link's had direct sequels where he starts with nothing and no reason is given. So why try to come up with one now? I mean, it seems kind of weird. I mean, it seems like you're actually forcing The Legend of Zelda to take place after this. Like I mentioned in my timeline previously, Zelda 2 shows the town names of 5 of the sages. Obviously no town is named Emperor Zelda because they're of royal lineage. Now, as I mentioned before, this is such a minuscule detail that I don't think it's coincidental that they'd have the name of that they'd name the sages this. Just like placing Link on the boat at the end of the Oracle games. It's a plot device strictly meant to place the games in a certain order. As I said before, the sages never awoke in Hyrule A, so Darunia and Ruto would probably be the only ones of any note in that timeline. But in Hyrule B, all of them were present as they sealed Ganon away. I don't think it's coincidental that the sages share the names with these towns, which is why the first 2 Zelda games are placed at the end of Hyrule B. Anyway, thanks for listening to my follow-up, guys. Thanks to P-Merkt and WickedX for their timelines, which helped solidify a few of the games on mine. So, look for more videos from me soon, guys. Well, thanks and good night.